Hello Mr. Wellman, I'm Raymond Fu. Today I'll be explaining the extra credit assignment number 3, the diamond array. First I had my helper function square, which draws the square with the for I in range 4. So it draws these individual squares here. And then I have my next helper function, which is row 1, which draws the squares with a gap, which as you can see is 3 here. So we draw 1, 2, and 3 squares. And then row 2, which draws the next row, which is the same thing as the top, except for it just has 1 less square. As you can see, there's 3 squares here, and now there's 2 squares. And then next row, it just moves to the next row. So it goes 3, and then it moves down moves about 3/4, and then draws the next row. And then the move to, as you can see from this is row 1, the row 2 has a little gap right here. So the move to just draws that little gap so I can start the second row. And then I have move back, and then it moves back so I can start my first row because there's a little gap. Then I have my edge, helper function edge, which draws the edge around this thing, around the square. And then I have my next helper function, which is square row, which it draws a row of them. And then I put a for I in range n times 2 minus 1, because if I put the number 3, it will draw actually 5 rows, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then when it's true, it draws row 1, and then when it's false, it draws row 2. So when the switch equals to true, it draws row 1, and then switches to false, and then draws row 2, and then it repeats that for n times 2 minus 1 amount of times. Then I have my row, then my row's square root, which draws a row of the squares here. All of this is just to make it go back to place. So after I draw this first square, all of this is just to move back here so I can draw the second square. And then the final is it draws my final out the parameter t, size, switch, and then n, and then row, and then column, where switch is true, and then n is how many numbers I want, like how many per each of the squares here. And the rows is how many rows I want, and the columns how many columns I want. So it draws the row first, and then all of this right here, it just moves the row back into here, so I can start drawing the second row. Then all of this is just to make it so I have enough space. I changed the sizing a little bit because it would take too long, but it should work with the numbers you're giving me. It was just taking too long, so I just made a tinier version of it. And then this is what actually prints out. I put final, and then test, and the size of which I have 50, and then true, and then the number of squares I want in each square, and then how many rows, and then how many columns. And if I click run, we can see that it actually works. And then I'm going to do another test where I'm going to do the same numbers that you did, except for I'm only going to add 1 row, or 1 column. I should make this smaller first. Okay, this is closer to what we are asked to do, except for it just takes too long. So I'm just gonna cut it after it draws 1 square, or 2 squares actually. And I'm just gonna stop it here because it was gonna take too long. And that's it.